Welcome back to another episode of the College Prep Podcast. I'm Megan Dorsey from College Prep Results, where I'm working with a bunch of high school juniors to get ready for these spring SAT and ACT dates. I'm here today with my co host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Edward from Alma Modern, which is a place for students and educators to learn all of the strategies that we need to earn a life-changing college education. And so today, Megan, we actually have a question from a listener that I'm
I
really
love listener questions. Everyone should know. Go ahead and email them to us, collegepreppodcast@gmail.com.
yeah, absolutely. We want to know exactly what you're wondering so we can get you unstuck. And so this question is about a high schooler who's ready to go to college soon. So I'm just going to read it here because I think there's a lot of great context for us. So it says, our students have lots of chances to take dual credit classes in their junior and senior year. After speaking with students who have already graduated from our high school and are off at college, we heard that some of the dual credit classes just weren't worth it. Either the classes didn't count for the specific credit they thought it would, or they just weren't accepted for the credit at all. So, as a student, how do you decide which ones are going to be worth your time and your effort? So, for example, all of the graduates said that the dual credit AB Calc class at our high school was definitely worth it. The teacher is awesome, gives lots of one-to-one time to each high school student to make sure they get it, and more time than you would get from a college professor. And AB Calc is a class that most colleges offer, and you'll get from, oh, sorry, and you can get a grade in your class that will actually meet a math requirement. However, the graduate said that the dual credit speech class at our high school just wasn't worth it. It was given by a community college, and many out of state universities just didn't accept it as an equivalent course to what they offer or require for their students. So, here's the big money question here. Is there any guidance on what we should consider when we're looking at building dual credit courses into our schedule? How do we know which ones we should take and which ones we shouldn't?
Okay. And I think this is a great question. And I'm going to answer sort of broadly. I think a lot of students are seeing a lot of potential in junior and senior year to do different classes that may earn them college credit. So I'm thinking IB for those on the International Baccalaureate track, AP, the advanced placement classes, and dual credit has made a huge surge in the last 10 or so years. So much so that we're seeing some high schools in my area, students are doing their graduation to get their associate's degree the month before they're graduating from high school. They've had the opportunity to earn so many credits while still in high school that they've got that associate's degree. All of these, I think, are great, especially if you know that paying for college is going to be a problem. If you can get more credits out of the way by just doing your normal high school work, that's wonderful. But you really need to understand your options. So look at what your school offers. And some of you might want to dig into this while in ninth or 10th grade because you don't want to wait until the kid brings home the form, junior year, getting ready to go into junior year and says, my schedule choices are due on Friday. What do we want to do? The next thing that goes with that is sort of understanding how do each of these things result in college credit. So AP and IB are based on students taking a test at the end of the course, making a satisfactory score, and then they get to take that score to whatever school they choose to attend. And I would tell people it's almost like a coupon. You turn it in for credit. You don't walk in the door with credit. You've got a coupon to earn your credit. Different schools recognize different things. You and I both may have made a 4 on the AP US history exam. Out of 5, a 4 is a great score. But you may attend a school that takes 3 through 5 and gives them college credit. I may choose to go to a school that only takes 5s. You would have credit for the exact same score. I have no credit. So people need to understand how that works. Dual credit is really interesting because you're sitting in the same class. You're sitting in a high school English class or history class or speech or calculus. and you are enrolled at the same time in an equivalent class, usually at an area community college. So your high school will have made an agreement with some type of college. A lot of times it's a community college where you're going to get community college credit at the same time you're getting high school credit. That's the dual part of it. Those are community college or other college credits. You don't have to take a test. This is great for the kid who is a good student, but not the world's best test taker. So I've had students say, I took a AP class in 10th grade. My school let me. I took the AP exam and made a 1 or a 2. And pretty much no colleges are giving credit for scores of 1 or 2 out of 5. They did all the work, but they're not walking away with any option of college credit just because of their test taking ability, how they did on that one day. But dual credit is show up the whole semester. We're going to evaluate your work. We're going to evaluate your tests and your quizzes and your projects and your papers, just like we would a normal college class. So the hardworking kid who maybe isn't the best standardized test taker can end up, with an A in the class. So they've got an A on their high school transcript, and now they've got an A in that college class. How that turns into credit? Well, you've got the college credit. Do all schools accept it? Well, that really depends. I'm in Texas. We have an agreement among all of our universities in Texas that there are certain community college classes that will fulfill the state core graduation requirements. So if my kid at the local high school takes the AP, not the AP US history, the dual credit US history, and it's the approved one, that will guarantee to transfer to every state university within Texas. Now, if I want to go to a private school, it's up to that school as to whether they're going to recognize the credit. Kid wants to go out of state, it's up to the university out of state as to whether they're going to give it credit, just like you would transferring from any other school. And I've just gone over a lot. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I think especially the idea around the coupon idea, it's really a smart way to think about it. It's an opportunity to unlock credit at the institution you choose. But as we are deciding which institution is the right one for us, then we talk about maybe having the spreadsheet of which school is the right fit. That's probably something that should be on it. Well, at this school, I've actually already completed 4 courses worth of credits, and here I haven't completed any. So that may also factor into some of your decisions of where you end up attending, right?
So my daughter graduated from our local public high school, a school that offers a lot of AP classes. She took AP and didn't take any dual credit. She's a good test taker. AP is in general seen as maybe a little more rigorous. And since she's a good test taker, it wasn't going to be an issue. She had completed 13 AP classes by the time she graduated. If she had gone to Texas A&M University, she would have had 54 credit hours
Oh, wow.
based on her AP tests.
Great.
Where she went, she had 33 credit hours, an awful lot. She sometimes found, and she went and graduated from Rice University, she found that there were a number of students who had taken AP classes in high school, done very well, and chosen not to take the credit at Rice, but instead to retake the class. So I can't remember, I think it was chemistry she was taking, not as a requirement, but because she thought it would be good knowledge to have. She kept going in for extra help and tutorials. She says, I just feel so behind. And the TA who was working with her said, you're not behind. Everybody else took AP chemistry in high school. You're the one who didn't. So you're not behind. They're just all that much more ahead. So we're seeing a lot of students choosing not to maybe cash in those credits and instead just using it as a way to start off maybe at a running start in certain classes.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to the next important point of, well, how do I decide what to do? You need to identify your reason for taking the class. So if the reason is, I need to get as much college credit as I can while I'm here in high school because I know our family can't afford to pay for it, or I'd like to get in and out of college, in a couple years, 2 or 3 years. And the more credits that I can accumulate here in high school, the faster this process is going to get me on the way to the next thing I want to do. Then you want to prioritize, how can I best get those credits? And for some people, the answer is dual credit. I'm not depending on myself to do well on a particular test. But the question might also be, take a minute and dig a little deeper. Are you in a situation, maybe like I am here in Texas, where your state universities have guaranteed that they will accept these community college classes? If not, maybe start doing a little more research and saying, how likely is it that I'm going to be able to get credit for it? Because if credit's my number one goal, then I need to make sure that the colleges on my list are going to recognize and award me credit. And we've found some of the really hard to get into Ivy League and Ivy-like schools have started really cutting back on what they award for credit. Some have gone as far as to say, we're not giving anybody credit for anything. Doesn't matter how well you score. We're not awarding any credits based on your high school work. Some say, well, we'll give you up to 4 courses worth of credit. You need to start researching. If you're really interested in a school who's not going to give you credit and your primary goal was to get credits, I guess it doesn't really make any sense to do either in a way. So it's an important discussion. For those people who are looking at the really hard to get into colleges, the problem is it's not always an issue of credit. Those schools are going to evaluate you on the curriculum you've taken in high school. In other words, are you taking the most challenging classes? And very often, the most challenging classes on your campus are going to be those advanced AP or dual credit classes, as opposed to just regular history or regular English. So you may have to think, well, I would love to get college credit, but the real reason I'm taking these dual credit or AP or IB classes is because I need to be taking the hardest, most rigorous material in high school just as preparation for learning, because that's what the type of places I'm looking at are expecting. That's the level that I intend to play out once I get into college. So
Definitely.
it's a difficult challenge to realize there may be more than one reason to take that class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think from this like learning nerd perspective, it's a great way to push yourself to understand what is my academic rigor sort of threshold, which will also help you determine the right school for you. If you are not willing to take the AP courses and the dual credit, then are some of the institutions you're thinking about actually the right place? Are you up for the challenge that these places are going to present you? And I think that it's easy for us to forget that the sort of, I don't like the ranking system, but sort of the more prestigious or the more high perceived value of attending a certain institution is, like Harvard or Princeton or Yale or something. We can assume that a lot of these rankings come from the academic rigor associated with that university. Therefore, that degree was a tough degree to earn from that school. And so if you're not willing to challenge yourself to take the AP, the dual credit, is that really the right school? And so they're also a great way to determine how far you're willing to push yourself, and then great prep for stepping it up, right? And really starting to have a stronger transition out of high school into college, because we do definitely see a gap of students who say, well, I performed well in high school, but I'm just failing in college. And it's, well, what courses did you take? Were you actually preparing yourself for the rigor of college, or were you settling for sort of the bare minimum high school requirements, which are not intended to push you off to a place like Harvard?
Exactly. It's interesting. My son, high school senior, knew going into this school year that the likelihood of him using all of the AP credit that he will have is small. One of the schools, in fact, the school he's probably going to decide on, doesn't award any AP credit whatsoever. That doesn't mean that going into this second semester, he dropped AP English, biology, and calculus. No, he stayed in it because it's the right class for him. It's pushing him at the right speed, at the right level. I also say that this is sometimes important. Are you with the right peer group? Because sometimes in high school, it's a matter of surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are going to push and encourage you. And sometimes we find that in those more advanced classes, the dual credit classes, the AP classes, and we don't always find those in the standard academic classes.
Very true. Very true.
So the other thing is, I know in the email it said, well, some of these classes were great because we had great teachers who give, wonderful instruction. And I just think of my own AP calculus teacher, Ms. Boken, who spent so much time working with us, answered all of our questions, was so clear in her teaching. I know that had I gone to college and taken Calculus 101, they could not have been better at teaching than my high school AP teacher was. But you need to understand when you're registering for courses that things change. So it may be the policies at some of the schools on your list change, what they're going to accept, what they don't accept. It could be that the teachers change. And we've seen that throughout both of my kids' schooling is 1 year they'll have an amazing teacher for this particular course, and the next year it's different. Maybe not so amazing. And so you may register with one idea and then find that it's a little different. And that's why I think it's really important. Again, what's my primary motivation in this? And if it's, okay, my motivation is getting the credit, then I'm going to get the credit whether I have the great teacher or not. If it's being in the right environment academically, then I'm doing that, even if maybe the policy on credit that I'm looking at has changed. But those things happen. It happens all the time, and you just need to be ready for it.
Um,
Go ahead.
I would like to quickly touch on when we're taking dual credit courses, how to identify which ones of those will be worth it. So similarly to Texas, I'm in California, and there are agreements between all of the community colleges and the state schools. These courses transfer and these ones don't. And there's this great website, if you happen to be shopping colleges in California, called assist.org. And assist.org is this tool where you can choose any California community college, select the course, and then it will show you where it transfers to for the Cal States, for the UCs, which is University of California. And you can know how to choose the right courses. And so my tip here is go to the community college that you're interested in taking this dual credit course with and say, what resources do you have available to show me where your courses transfer? So most of these campuses will have a transfer office, and those people are going to become your best friend and simplify this process of choosing those dual credit courses, because they will show you which agreements they have with which campuses. And typically there's some portal that's really easy to navigate and makes it really simple to choose.
And you can always just pick up the phone and ask if you need to.
Totally.
I will say that you should have somebody on your high school campus who has done some of their homework on this. In other words, the high school shouldn't be offering courses that don't generally transfer or generally satisfy core graduation requirements in your state. They can't control whether every particular university, private schools, and all are going to take it. But hopefully, the right courses have been selected. And you can tell that by going over to the community college website, just as Edward described, and looking it up. And a lot of times when you're taking these as dual credit, the model that I've seen almost exclusively where I am is that this course is being taught by your high school teacher. Now, sometimes we have little hiccups because maybe the high school teacher, who's the amazing teacher, doesn't have the credentials to teach on the community college level. And so sometimes we've seen maybe we're getting some instruction on campus and then everybody's having to do some online learning in order to complete the requirements because they couldn't get somebody on your campus to teach it. Look into those. Find out, how is this going to happen? 1 year at my daughter's school, dual credit English abruptly switched from the previous year being taught by the high school English teacher to now everybody's sitting in a computer lab doing it online. Well, it was a very different experience. Sometimes you can predict that by doing a little research on your end. Sometimes you can't. But that's the idea of look into the options, understand that there may be changes, and then be flexible as long as you can keep your primary motivation in mind. To answer the final question, I think the email says is, are there classes you would rather get credit for than not? And I always tell people, you might rather get credit for the things you don't want to have to take in college. And this almost seems opposite to a lot of students. I'll have students say, but I want to major in English or history. Shouldn't I get AP credit for English or history? Or the flip side of that, I want to be a pre-med student. Shouldn't I get biology, chemistry, calculus, AP credit? And I always tell the story that you may be happier getting out of the things you don't want to do. In other words, if you're going to be that English history major, go ahead and take dual credit chemistry. Go ahead, take that AP or dual credit calculus class and get out of the math science classes. Check, those things are off your list. Now you can focus on what you love. If you're the opposite, you're that potential pre-med student, you might rather get credit for the English and history. You may go ahead, like I was describing at my daughter's school, and take the science classes in high school, but you might not want to get out of them because you want to now go in and get the full year of biology or chemistry to make sure you're on par with everybody there at your university. So the strategy behind it may be go ahead and work in high school on getting credits for things you don't want to have to do in college, or the things that you will be better assisted doing in your own high school.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone that coaches college students and having run university learning centers, what you see is that our math students who are majoring in maths and the hard sciences, they're coming into the writing center for tutoring and coaching. And the students on the other end of the spectrum who are English majors, they're not visiting the writing center, they're coming in for math tutoring. And so obviously at that point, the courses become much more challenging. And when I would hear students say, I'm just feeling demotivated, I don't know if college is the right fit, it's because they're wasting their time doing a lot of things that they could have gotten out of the way had they been just a little bit more proactive. And then college would have been the experience they dreamed of, right? Most students dream of the upper division major coursework. Like, I finally get to dig into the subject I love, but you have 2 years of general ed that you've got to wade through first. And those 2 years are where we lose the most students because a lot of students say, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. So do yourself a favor. It's really smart advice to just get those courses out of the way and make college more what you think it's going to be once you get there, just by doing what you love to do.
And that's the way I would use those AP, IB, dual credit classes. Yes, it might be just to position yourself to be ready to go, but also let's try and knock out the things I'd rather not be doing. So I hope that's a good answer to the question. And like I said, if anybody has questions, we'd love to answer listener questions. Go ahead and send them to us at collegepreppodcast@gmail.com. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye, everyone.